Now guess what happens a week later? The ascent of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his politics of muscular nationalism has changed the ground rules.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है, हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
And India must always stand with the victims, not the aggressors. Views expressed in this blog are hosted on my own website, are strictly personal and do not reflect the views of any organization. Hello and welcome friends once again to Straight Bat, my weekly video blog where, as the title suggests, I comment with a straight bat. Namaskar, happy Pujo. That's right, a week is a long time in war and politics. The horrific October 7th terror attacks on Israeli civilians by Hamas, in which more than 1,000 people have died, has sparked off global outrage, but also impacted in a strange way domestic politics here in India. Now remember, there was a Congress Working Committee resolution last week that mysteriously omitted mentioning Hamas terror while focusing on Palestinian rights. With the BJP immediately accusing the grand old party of being terror apologists, the Congress had to hastily clarify that it unequivocally condemned the Hamas terror and the loss of all civilian lives. Now guess what happens a week later? A blast takes place at the Gaza hospital site in which hundreds have died. And opposition leaders are now asking, where is the BJP with its condemnation and sympathy for those who've died or are injured? Will India's ruling party speak up for the long-suffering Palestinian people as they have for Israel? It appears Indian politics is being divided by a terror act in Israel. Now, historically, terror acts have seen Indian political parties speak mostly in one voice. The ascent of Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his politics of muscular nationalism has changed the ground rules. When during the 2019 general elections, Mr. Modi referred to the Balakot airstrikes and boasted, "Ghar mein ghus kar maar diya hai. We have entered their homes and attacked them." He positioned the war against Pakistan-based terror at the center of his 2019 re-election pitch. More specifically, the Prime Minister had then contrasted the retaliatory strikes with Manmohan Singh government's more cautious approach in the aftermath of the 26/11 Mumbai terror attack. Now, during last year's Gujarat Assembly elections, the Prime Minister was even more direct when he asked the electorate to be alert about Congress and like-minded parties, which he said kept mum on big terror attacks. An uncorroborated claim by Congress leader Salman Khurshid that Sonia Gandhi was moved to tears by pictures of Indian Mujahideen terrorists who were shot dead during the 2008 Batla House encounter in Delhi was then used to amplify this argument that the Congress is guilty of minority appeasement and is soft on terror. A series of terror blasts during the UPA years, especially between 2005 and 2008, were highlighted to push the Congress on the defensive. What is sometimes conveniently forgotten is that it is the same Congress which brought the TADA Act, Terrorist and Disruptive Activities Act, and revised the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act to make it more stringent and draconian. Forget all that. Where this terror politics takes an uglier turn, my friends, is when it resorts to constant dog whistling to draw a link between global Islamic terror and co-religionists in the neighborhood. Indian Muslims may express solidarity with Palestinian causes, but why should Indian Muslims bear any collective guilt for a dastardly attack by Hamas in Israel, or indeed for nefarious cross-border activities of a Pakistan-based Lashkar-e-Toiba or Jaish terrorists, or indeed the Afghan Taliban militia? Recall now how when the Taliban recaptured power in Afghanistan in 2021, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath at an election rally warned that those with a Talibani mindset within the country would be dealt with sternly. So if the Congress stands accused of minority pandering, then the BJP too can be faulted for seeking to consolidate a Hindu vote bank by playing politics with terror. It is this starkly polarized nature of vote bank politics, my friends, which uses religion to divide and rule, that has drawn domestic politics within the crosshairs of a terror attack in another country. Moreover, the ever-widening influence of social media and instant messaging tools on your mobile phones have created ominous real-time narratives that are craftily being exploited as what I call weapons of mass divides, WMDs. Take for example the toxic WMD, that not every Muslim is a terrorist, but every terrorist is a Muslim, which is repeatedly and deliberately echoed and spread across WhatsApp groups to, in a way, spread fear and prejudice about an entire community. Right-wing internet warriors in particular have been quick to use incendiary social media content in the war on terror to demonize all Muslims. A report by Boom, a fact-checking website, found that a number of Indian X or Twitter users were helming a concerted Islamophobic disinformation campaign to showcase Palestinians as fundamentally inhuman. This included a fake video claiming to show dozens of young girls taken as sex slaves by a Palestinian fighter. These shrill propagandists, my friends, may seek to create a neat black and white universe of villains and heroes. But India's approach to the Israel-Hamas war stems from a more complicated history. In the Nehruvian non-aligned era, India, particularly Prime Minister Nehru, was seen to firmly hitch himself to the Free Palestine bandwagon. By contrast, the RSS leadership at the time was always a staunch supporter of the Israeli state, even when New Delhi kept its distance from Tel Aviv. Later, remember, Indira Gandhi was wooed by Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian Liberation Organization leader, and India was among the first countries to recognize the PLO and give it an office in 1980 here in New Delhi. In 1992, Narasimha Rao's government changed tack, and they decided to establish full diplomatic relations with Israel. And guess what? The RSS gave Mr. Rao's decision a big thumbs up. Now, in more recent times, the Indo-Israeli equation has acquired a strategic depth, with Prime Minister Modi striking a strong personal bond with his Israeli counterpart Benjamin Netanyahu. Don't forget that when Mr. Modi was being denied access to the US and the United Kingdom, Israel, Japan and China were the three countries that actually reached out to the Prime Minister. Don't forget also, therefore, that Mr. Modi was the first Indian Prime Minister to visit Israel, and the enduring image of his 2017 visit was he and Mr. Netanyahu walking hand in hand along the beachfront. At the same time, Mr. Modi has consciously and successfully cultivated business-friendly Gulf states like the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. While New Delhi has therefore rightly expressed sympathy with Israel over the unprecedented terror attack, the Modi government cannot afford to antagonize its newfound friends across the Arab world with any harsh, one-sided remarks. How can the Indian political establishment then stereotype Palestinian Muslims as the villains and Israeli Jews as the victims, when the reality is of a tortured and prolonged conflict in which basic human rights are at stake? Realpolitik demands a diplomatic tightrope walk, shorn of this high decibel rhetoric or any moral grandstanding. Which is why Mr. Modi has finally rung up the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and expressed concern over the killings of civilians in Gaza. Remember, the Prime Minister's initial response expressing solidarity with Israel but without any mention of the Palestinian issue, has reportedly angered many Arab capitals. Indeed, Indian politicians, therefore, across the divide, need to be a little bit more circumspect before jumping the gun to seek any potential electoral benefit out of the terror attack. You see, social media warriors can take sides easily. Politicians and diplomats cannot afford to do so. The horrors of Hamas need to be condemned, but not without reference to the numerous atrocities faced by the Palestinian people for decades now. There are, my friends, no winners and losers in this cycle of hate and violence. Revenge and collective retribution will get us nowhere. All we are getting is thousands of dead bodies that we are counting by the day. As a postscript, let me tell you interestingly, clearly discomfited by this Congress Working Committee resolution, a young Congress worker had an interesting explanation for the Congress's dilemma over Israel and Palestine. You see, some of our leaders, he told me, were reared in a period when Indira Gandhi was being wooed by Yasser Arafat and Israel was pitched as an enemy state. These leaders are living in past nostalgia, not in present realities. He is right, my friends. India must be seen as non-partisan when it comes to acts of terror and violence. Whether it is the Hamas or whether it is the Israeli state, any targeting of innocent civilians must be condemned, and India must always stand with the victims, not the aggressors. That, according to me, is the way to take forward the legacy of the great Mahatma Gandhi, who himself was one of the first to reach out to the sufferings of the Palestinian people. Think about it. That was the Straight Bat. Do, of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel for many more such videos. For now, stay well, stay safe. Happy Pujo. Namaskar.